Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 55 of Not the Worst at Knitting podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. I am back. I took a week off last week, but I'm back today with another normal podcast episode. In today's episode, I've just got a couple of works in progress for you. One project is really close to being done, but it has been through the ringer a little bit, so I'll talk a little bit about that. And then I have another new work in progress, which I touched on briefly last episode. So just a couple of things to talk about. You'll see I'm not wearing knitwear today, and that's actually because we're having like a normal summer day. It's not crazy hot out, but it's definitely warmer today. So I still wanted to represent, so I've got my flock t-shirt on from the very first flock 2 years ago now, almost 3 years ago, kind of getting ramped up for flock, which will be coming here in I think just about 3 weeks, which is crazy. I cannot believe we're 3 weeks away from flock again. I feel like I just bought my tickets. But I won't chat too much about that. I am excited to be back. I don't know, it's weird. I just took a week off and I feel like I was gone for a while. But why don't we go ahead and talk about my first work in progress, and then we'll chat about the big project, which kind of made me decide to take a week off because I really needed to spend some time focusing. So the first project I've got to show you guys, this is brand new to you guys because I was still kind of ruminating on the idea, but I have half of, well, I have a whole sock, but it's a half FO, half work in progress, if you will, of another version of my Wildflower Bloom Socks. So this is a pattern I designed a couple summers ago, and it was wholly based on my inspiration from my flower garden. I love to plant a bunch of flowers every year in our yard, and it just always inspires me so much, just all the flowers, all the different colors, and just the beautiful vibrancy and how it pops against the green. So I've done a couple of versions. I'll pop pictures of those up for you to see. But I love this pattern so much, and so I'd been thinking about doing another pair, and then my friend Yeji of Anmade Co. on Instagram and YouTube, she is hosting a make-along for the month of July, and it's called the Flower Power MAL. I'll put the hashtag up here so you can see. Also, I don't know if you can hear that, but Tuna is behind the curtain scratching at the door. He likes to dig on windows. I think he thinks that at some point I'm gonna let him out, but he's an indoor only cat, so I don't know. He has big dreams. Anyway, so Yeji is hosting that Flower Power Make-Along where anything you knit, or really anything you create that has anything to do with flowers in any way, can be a part of this make-along. And because of my Wildflower Bloom patterns, I knew I wanted to participate and do another pair of socks. So I decided to dig through my stash, and actually last episode, I was asking you guys what yarn you preferred. And so I will say this ranked high, but it wasn't the winner. But it's the one I wanted to do, and it's the one I was leaning toward anyway. So it's like when you ask for a poll, but you already know the answer, and maybe you're looking for recognition, but even if they don't agree, you don't listen anyway. I don't know. It was fun to do to see what people preferred. Because it's always so interesting, right? Like sometimes what you pick is exactly what everybody agrees with, and other times it's like, oh, nobody else wants to do this? Okay, cool. But this still ranked high. And what I am using is So Happy Jane Joyful Fingering this is Sage Advice in the green, and the white is Pistachio Cream. And they're so beautiful. I believe it's a 75-25 merino nylon, superwash merino nylon. It's incredibly soft and very stretchy. You can see this is how much I've done on my second sock, so not really much to talk about. But this was rated decently high, but a lot of people were concerned about the contrast. Now, I totally get that. You know, it is definitely a lower contrast, but I knew there was still enough contrast in the color to where it wasn't going to be an issue. And also, the other two that I've done are fairly high contrast, especially the one that I did in Explore Knits and Fibers with Fangirl Fibers. That is the one that's like kind of a wild purple main color, and then the contrast color is a little bit of like a peachy white. So that was very high contrast, and so I was okay with doing one that was a little bit softer. When I bought these yarns, I knew I wanted to pair them together because of the softness, and I thought the speckles in the white yarn would go really nicely with the tonal aspect of the green yarn. And I actually really love how this turned out. I think these are so beautiful. And actually, it'll be fun if you want to see this in person and you're going to Flock. When I finish these, I'm actually going to give these to Heather of So Happy Jane to keep at her booth. So you can see what they look like knit up. I have done the shadow wrap heel here. That is my preferred heel method. And I also love doing that heel for colorwork socks because you're not interrupting anything and dealing with a lot of weird edges or anything like that. You don't have to worry about picking up stitches in your colorwork and having a whole mess with that. You just stop, you do the heel, and then you work the colorwork again, and it's so easy. And you can customize the depth of your heel as much as you want. So it's my preferred method. I love the way they fit on my foot, and I also love the way they look in the sock. So that is sock number 1, and hopefully the second sock won't take me too much longer to do. And I'm just really, really loving how these are coming out, and it's incredibly soft. These aren't even blocked yet, like this isn't blocked. So once I block this, I think it's gonna be even more beautifully soft. So I can't wait to wear these. It's gonna be a while, of course, because we'll be showing them at Flock. Yeah, these will be really, really fun to wear in probably like a month or so. So that is my first work in progress. And also just to keep talking about the Flower Power Make-Along, because I participated in the Make-Along, Yeji actually sent me some stitch markers that she handmade, and they are so beautiful. I mean, look at that. So she sent me, there are a few of them. I'm gonna try and show each of these because I feel like they should each be shown, and of course I can't actually see. So that is a little fish. These are some cherries. This is a little gummy bear. And then this one is a really fun little iridescent flower. So I'm planning to use these. I might use one of the stitch markers on my next sock, although these are a little bit big, so I might just save these for my next normal knitting project, which includes a sweater coming up, so I might do it for that, but I just think these are so pretty. I really love the tulip one. I think that is just precious. So thank you, Yeji, if you are watching. I love these so much. They are so cute. So speaking of Flock, super exciting news there. I will just kind of interject with a little segue since we're sort of talking about things that will be at Flock in the So Happy Jane booth. So yeah, this was kind of a fun coincidence because this was yarn that I had bought from her booth last year, and I've been wanting to work it up for a while. But since then, if you have been watching me, you already know my Fidalgo cardigan, which is now in testing, will also be debuting in her booth at Flock. So the Fidalgo cardigan will officially be available for sale on August 7th, which is the day before the Flock festivities begin. So it is the Thursday before. August 8th is when classes start at Flock. And then the 9th and the 10th, which is Saturday and Sunday, that is the actual Flock event with the shopping and all of that. So the pattern will be releasing on the 7th, so it gives you a couple of days to kind of figure out what yarn you might want, what quantities you might want, all of that stuff. And in her booth, in Heather's booth at So Happy Jane at Flock, she's going to have kits. So you'll be able to buy the pattern, you will be able to buy all the yarn. She has 2 yarn options, which is fantastic. And you'll also be able to buy the buttons that I used. Again, I will pop up a couple of pictures here. The buttons that I used are from Wendy of Very Warm Stripes, or Warm Stripes on Etsy. And they are amazing. They're beautiful handmade ceramic buttons, and they're so beautiful. And she's made a ton of different color options. So those will be available at So Happy Jane's booth, along with, like I said, there are 2 yarn options. So one of the yarn options is the Tweedy yarn that I used, and then the other option is just a merino yarn that she actually used in her sample. So if I can find a photo, I will pop it up. She knit hers, Heather knit hers in this ridiculously gorgeous green, and all I can think about is how much I want to knit myself one in that yarn. So I might actually pick up some of that yarn at Flock because it is gorgeous. So both of those samples will be at the booth at Flock for you to see, for you to try on, and then you can see the yarn options that she has. I don't think she's gonna have everything available right then because so much of her yarn is dyed to order. She will have some options, and then she'll also have options for you to pre-order and pick your yarn colors. So there's all sorts of info about that. More info to come as we get closer to the pattern release. We still have a couple of weeks. So as we get closer, I will talk a little bit more about that and give you all the details you need so you're ready to go. And that way, even if you're not attending Flock, you can still order that yarn if you would like to order that yarn. Order the buttons if you'd like to order that buttons. I'll get you all the information for that. But it's very exciting that that is coming up soon because, you know, I started the Fidalgo cardigan months ago, and so we're almost there now. We're almost there. I actually should have, like, thinking about it now, I should have put that on the mannequin, but I didn't even think about it. I've got my Anna Cordes short sleeve pullover on the mannequin today. That felt appropriate for such a warm summer day, but I will probably be wearing that at Flock. Okay, enough about Flock. I'm sure you're probably over that, especially if you're not going. So we won't chat about that any longer, but we can go ahead and talk about my next work in progress. If you have been watching me for the last few weeks, then you might be expecting this. So my Misty Pines Sweater, we're almost there. And you might be able to see that we have two very different sleeves, and that is intentional. Don't worry, it won't stay that way. But I can't even remember. I don't even think I had one finished sleeve the last time I was talking about this. But so I've knit 3 sleeves so far for this because I've ripped out one and then I have these 2. I knit the first sleeve on this side and I felt like it was too tight. It was quite tapered. And so I went to a larger size where it's still tapered on this side. And so that is a tapered sleeve with the small motif. And then I still really wanted to do a large motif. Like in my sketch, in my mind, for the large motif, I just wanted the large motif throughout. A lot of people voted that I do the small motif on the sleeve for with the large motif, just because not everybody wants a crazy sleeve and some people want more subtlety on their sleeve, and I totally get that. So I wanted to see what that would look like, and I wanted to knit up that option so that that would be available in pattern. But my heart wanted the large motif. It had to happen. And I liked the idea of a little bit of a balloon sleeve. Not anything crazy, not a hugely dramatic balloon sleeve, especially because this is worsted weight yarn. So we don't need like hunks of fabric on a sleeve, right? Like it's a lot. So just a little bit of a balloon sleeve. I have to apologize because this sleeve is actually still pretty damp. So it still looks it could look better, but it's still drying, but you know, we're impatient over here. So I had to show you, I had to show you now. So to give you a little bit of backstory on this in case you're just tuning in or haven't watched for a while, this is my Misty Pines Sweater, which I am currently designing. It is not available yet, of course, because I'm still working on it. And this is inspired by my other Misty Pines patterns that I've designed. I designed Misty Pines beanie, and then later on I designed Misty Pines mitts to go with them. And those were designed specifically to be used with Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok Worsted Neutral Bundle. So you can they have mini bundles of their Woolstok worsted in a different variety of colors. They have a few themes. And I really wanted the challenge of designing something in a bundle, something kind of small. And so I selected the neutral bundle just because honestly that's so different for me, but the colors really spoke to me. I thought it was just such a beautiful range of browns and grays. Just so out of what I normally knit, if you know anything about me. And what had been on my mind and what had inspired me was the layers of trees on a mountain and how the mist kind of breaks them up and creates these subtle gradients as the trees kind of fade into the mist, hence Misty Pines. And some of that was even inspired by a photo that my husband took, Thomas. He He dabbles in amateur landscape photography. I say amateur only because he doesn't sell it professionally, but he takes amazing photos. So I will pop up that photo because that also worked as inspiration. And I've always loved that pattern so much that I've wanted to do a sweater version. And so I finally decided to do that. So with the beanie and the mitts, that motif is actually this motif where you can see it's much smaller and it's very subtle. Whereas if you compare it to the body, you can see that the body is scaled up. So the body is 2 times the motif. And that is just because I wanted a version where the trees took up most of the body. Next, I will be knitting up another version of this sweater where this small motif is actually on the body. So that's coming next, but I wanted options really because my sketch had the big one, but I also recognized that doing the 2 times motif, it does make the pattern look a little bit different. Now from afar, I think you get the same effect, you know, as I pull back, but of course, when you zoom in, and I'm hoping, yeah, this does a good job because you can see both. It definitely looks different. Some people have said it looks like Legos. Some people said it looks like a pagoda. I even had a few people say it looks like Minecraft, and you know, for better or worse, right? Some people love that, and some people are like, that is so not my aesthetic. I love both. I love a bold pattern, and I also love a subtle pattern. I probably skew more bold, but I like subtlety. I like classic designs. So I just also, maybe part of this is just my general indecisive nature. I needed to see all options and then make a decision. So I've got my large motif body, and this is just on a drop sleeve. I've done some shaping at the underarm for all sizes. So it's like a drop sleeve with a little bit of a set-in sleeve construction so that you don't have a ton of fabric under here, and so that the drop hits everybody at about the same place. Additionally, and I talked a whole bunch about this last time, I added a little bit of short rows at the sleeve cap, just a little section like right here. Just to give it a little bit more fabric up here so there wasn't extra tension from it pulling, and so you wouldn't get even more bunching under the underarm. And I'm really happy with how that turned out. I talked about this a whole lot already, but it was really hard to find any specific rules about when to do it, how much shaping to do, if you should adjust that shaping for different sizes or not. And whether that varies for sleeve length. I had a long discussion with my tech editor about it, and even she was like, you know, it's really up to you. It's based on the design. Some of it is really based on like what kind of angle your drop is hitting at, and really like if that's just something you want to do or not. It's really personal preference. So this was kind of just like a let me do it and see how it goes, and if I like it or not. And if I don't, then I'll rip it back. But I actually really like the way that it fits. So I've decided to keep that. So there will be a little bit of short row shaping at the sleeve cap, and that's optional, of course. Like you can choose to omit that when you knit this pattern. That's the beauty of this, is there are a lot of things on here that you can choose to do or to ignore. So yeah, so we've got the tapered sleeve here. I did an Instagram poll because when I'd done the first sleeve that I felt was just way too narrow, I went up and did this as the second sleeve, and it was definitely less narrow, but still tapered. And I just really couldn't decide if I liked it. So I did an Instagram poll, and largely like this one, so many people were like, stick with the tapered small motif. So my other options were balloon sleeve with the small motif, or go full drama and do balloon sleeve with the large motif. And that one was interesting. So the taper won by a landslide. That had like 50% of the votes. But then about like 20% each were toggling back and forth on balloon sleeve, small motif, and large motif. By the time the poll ended, those two were about tied. And for most of the time, the small motif had been leading, but like right near the end, the large motif kind of picked up a little bit of traction and they tied. So it's funny because I do these polls, but again, like I I still end up kind of following through what I want to try because, I mean, you know, but it's good to see what people have to say and what people are interested in. There were a lot of people that voted neutral as well, which made me think that like, there are a lot of people that are not entirely sure, or maybe you're just here for the drama, I don't know. But ultimately, in my heart of hearts, I wanted this to be large motif throughout. I like the consistency of it. And again, I'm sorry if this is looking a little wonky because it's still damp, but I'm really happy with it. You know, I think me holding it up like this is really not doing it justice. So I think I'm gonna put it on even if it is a little damp. This is love, guys. I'm putting on damp wool just to show it. Oh yeah, that's damp. Yep. All right, so I am sitting up a little bit in my chair so you can see it. But so you can see here is the tapered sleeve with this small motif, which I love. I love the subtlety of it. I love how beautiful that is near the cuff. This doesn't, you can see I haven't bound off either of these. This does not have any additional decreases after the color work. I debated, actually, when I first did the poll, I had done another series of rapid decreases right there. But I felt like it didn't need it because it was already pretty tapered. And so I decided to take those out and just do a normal cuff, as you can see. And then on this side, we've got the balloon sleeve, which you can see is not a crazy dramatic balloon. Like I think part of it too, again, it's still wet, so it's a little chunky looking. And you can see I've got yarn everywhere. But I think it's not as dramatic as I was expecting. Like I was worried with all this fabric, it was gonna end up being huge. It's funny because I do the numbers and so I have the circumference written down of what it's gonna be. And even though I know the circumference I'm aiming to hit, when it goes just like 1 inch more or even 2 inches more than what my normal circumference is, I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be massive. But really it's not that much more, especially when you do the rapid decrease right after the color work, which is what I did. So I did do some light tapering, and that is only because this large motif requires 16 stitches for each repeat. And so every size needs to be divisible by 16. And I think there might only be one size that out the gate, the pickup is divisible by 16. But this one was not. So for my size, I had to do 4 sets of decreases that are spread fairly evenly throughout the arm just to get down to that size. But it was still a decent size arm. So you can see, here's how it looks in comparison. So we've got, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, you can see here. So we've got one where it's tapered all the way through, and then this one where there's a little bit of tapering and then it stops and you've got a little bit of a balloon sleeve. And that's really just to accommodate the large motif. For me personally, I prefer the matching motif. But also, you know, I don't need subtlety everywhere. I like how dramatic this is. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to keep this sleeve. I'm going to remove this sleeve and then knit another one to match this. But let me get back down. With that in mind, I do want to take some photos of this sleeve so that you can see both options, just so that when I go into testing, you can see what those options will be like. And basically what I mean is that for this pattern, you will have 2 options for the body, the large motif or the small motif, and then you will have 3 options for the sleeve. So option 1 is a tapered sleeve with the small motif. And then options 2 and 3 would be balloon sleeve with large motif or balloon sleeve with small motif. Now, the reason I'm not going to recommend doing a tapered sleeve with the large motif is just because there's still not a way to do that where you have a good amount of stitches for that taper and it be a multiple of 16 without it still being a little bit too big or without you only having 2 repeats. Like that just feels a little bit weird. That's something you could modify if you wanted, but I don't think many people are going to want to do that just because I feel like that's going to look a little bit strange. I think if you want the large motif on the sleeve, you're going to want a little bit more fabric there just for the drama, because let's be honest, if you're knitting the larger motif, maybe you like a little bit of drama, but I don't know, that's just me. Oh, okay, I had to take that off because it was so hot. It was like a mixture of being really hot and also the fact that the sleeve was damp. Actually, my arm is a little damp from that, which is kind of gross. It just, yeah, you know, damp wool doesn't feel great on the body. But hopefully that gives you a good idea of how they look. I would love, actually, I'm very curious because, you know, the results were so stark on the poll before I had knit the large motif on the sleeve. I would love your feedback on which you prefer. And I do wonder, so part of what I wonder is maybe once I knit the second version of this where it's got the small motif on the body, I do wonder if that one will be more popular largely. And that makes me wonder if maybe that's why the sleeve was more popular in general versus having a matching sleeve. But I would love to know your feedback. Do you like the smaller motif sleeve with the large motif on the sweater, or do you like the sleeve to match? Let me know, I'm very curious. So in terms of updates about what's going on with the Misty Pines sweater, I'm super close. So I just need to bind off my balloon sleeve, obviously wait for it to fully dry before I do that. And then I need to knit up the second sleeve, block that, and then from there I can finalize the pattern. And the pattern is basically done because I write it up as I go in my Google Doc. So it's really just taking the pattern, putting it into my template in InDesign. And then with that, there are a few things that I save for the very end, and that includes drawing and creating the schematic, doing all the final measurements to make sure my gauge is still exactly the same as what I projected to begin with. If not, making adjustments accordingly for the gauge if it changes. And then also measuring the yarn. So I make sure to measure all of my yarn beforehand by like as accurately as I can. And so I take the before amounts and then I will put in, as I'm using it, I'll put in each like amount of grams I've used. Basically, once I finish a whole ball, that was however many grams. And so I will take all of that, and it will be a little more complicated with this one because I think we have like 8 colors on this, 7 colors. So because of that, that will take me a little bit to get all of the yarn amounts estimated for all of the sizes. And that's, I have a whole series of equations in my Google Doc to figure that out, but there's still a little bit of finagling I have to do to make sure the numbers are spot on with kind of my creation and how much I used to make sure it is the most accurate for everybody. And then I do like a 10% buffer just to make sure people have enough. And that also accounts for, of course, it accounts for differences in gauge and just how you knit, but it can also account for if you decide to make your sleeves just a little bit longer or your body a little bit longer. I never want anybody to run out of yarn. So once I finish that, then it will go to my tech editor, and we're gonna have our fingers crossed that there's not a lot of major changes to that. Obviously, there's a little bit of shaping involved in this, in the sleeves, that I will need her to double check works well for all the sizes. And once she gives me the okay, then we will get it into testing. So I'm hoping that maybe this can be in testing within a few weeks. My goal is really, I'm hoping to get this pattern out by October for release, just so it's like in the heart of fall. And so that means that I kind of need to get on it. But this is why I didn't film a video last week, because I was stuck in deep indecision about the sleeve, because I'd done the tapered sleeve with the small motif, but I wasn't feeling it. I didn't have that feeling. I liked the sleeve and everybody voted for the sleeve, but in my heart, I knew it wasn't the one I wanted to go with. And so I sat on it for a day. I then blocked the tapered sleeve because I was like, maybe that's what I need to do to like find the love. And ultimately I realized that like, I just need to knit the other sleeve. I can't just imagine what it's gonna look like. I need to actually knit it. And now that I have, I'm so glad I did, because that is what I envisioned. That is what I see. So that's what I'm gonna do for that one. And then when I do my second sample with the small motif on the body, I can decide whether I want to do the tapered sleeve or the balloon sleeve with the small motif. So we'll see on that. I might still go balloon sleeve, but I don't know, we'll see. So stay tuned if you are interested in potentially testing for this Misty Pines sweater. I will of course announce it on my newsletter first, as well as on my social media. I always put out a story as well when I'm looking for testers. But my newsletter is definitely the first place to go to get that information. So you'll definitely want to be a subscriber if you're interested in that. And yeah, that is basically all I've got for my knitting. Hoping to make some progress within the next week. We are actually on vacation right now. So this upcoming Monday is Thomas's birthday. It's a big one. It's his big 4-0. So we took some time off. What he likes to do on his birthday is actually more of a staycation, which I kind of love. Like, we have some travel plans for later in the year, but for his birthday, we always take some time off, and we do a lot of hiking locally. So when I say locally, I mean within 2 to 3 hours of us. Because we live in Western Washington, there's so much around us that we don't really feel the need to fly somewhere, especially this time of year. I mean, mid-July, it's the best time to go to the mountains here because it's still very cool in most of the mountains. I mean, if we go to Mount Baker, there's still snow. There's still like a ton of snow at Mount Baker. So that's something we actually do quite often, is a hike at Mount Baker. Last year, I think, or maybe the year before, I don't even remember, we went to Mount Baker for sunset, and then Thomas took some astrophotography photos, which were stunning, amazing. If I can find some, I will pop them up here. I don't think we're going to be doing astro this year just because you kind of have to, like, he has to frame up before the sun goes down, and then we just kind of like wait on top of a totally snow-covered mountain for like 3 hours for him to be able to actually shoot the stars and the Milky Way. So it takes a while, and then, you know, you're leaving Mount Baker at like 2 a.m. and then you still have to drive home if you're not camping there. So it's a whole thing. So I don't know if we're going to be doing like the super late night, but we're definitely going to be popping out for some day hikes, which I'm really excited about. We also try to always hit up places we haven't been. So we might actually do some hiking in the Olympics this year, but we're gonna see. So we kind of mix it up to where we'll do like a day at home where we're just kind of taking it easy, maybe running some errands, and then the next day we will go do a big hike, do the whole big thing. And then the day after that, we come back home and we just like recover and relax. So it's a lot of that. We might go see a couple movies, just, you know, just enjoying having some time where we can just hang out and decide day of where we want to go and what we want to do. So that means I will probably have a good amount of knitting time, and I'm thrilled about that. So that is what is going on with us over the next couple of weeks. The only thing I have left to talk about is book chat. Not a ton. So I did finish the book The Housewarming by Kristen Offiler or Ofiler. I'm not entirely sure how you say her name. I actually just finished that last night, like just finished. So I really enjoyed this book, actually. It's kind of a true crime mystery, I guess. Basically, it follows these 5 women who they've been friends since they were girls and have always traveled via ferry to this island every year as kind of a vacation spot to, you know, remind themselves of where they all met. And they're super close, and something happens to one of them where they don't make it back after their last vacation. And the story takes place kind of following these women and how it's affected their lives 5 years later. And you're also trying to uncover what happened. Nobody knows. She just disappeared, and that's really all you know. And you're following through on this sort of true crime type of storytelling where there is this reporter that won't leave them alone and has constantly been kind of a thorn in their side, kind of just making their reputation really terrible and making it hard for them to stay around locally without, you know, being called out by people and people assuming the worst. So it was fun to kind of follow that. You follow each of the characters separately. And I will admit there were a few times where it felt like if they had just simply had a conversation and communicated a little bit, all of this could have been avoided. It's one of those stories where, you know, it is a lot of like, you kind of have to take a leap of faith of like, okay, they just didn't talk at all. And this is why like all of this could have been avoided if you had just been like, hey, guess what? I'm going to go do this thing. But I guess they also haven't been the closest of friends since that. So I guess you can kind of understand why they wouldn't trust each other. I don't know. Either way, I enjoyed it. It was a fun read. It was a pretty quick read. The only reason it actually took me this long to read it was just because we have been doing so much that by the time we go to bed, I would read like a chapter and barely read a chapter before I fell asleep. So it's just taken me a little bit longer, but I did enjoy it. I actually don't know what I'm gonna read next, so I need to find something on my Libby app. If you guys have recommendations, let me know. But yeah, I don't know what to read next. Also, I have been thinking a lot about getting a Kobo because I just found out about the great Libby integration that they have. Obviously it's not something I'm going to buy right away, but my Kindle is from 2018, and I think once it starts to wear out completely, I might shift to a Kobo. So if any of you have a Kobo or have worked with a Kobo, let me know. Specifically, I'm thinking about the Kobo Libra color. So yeah, if you have any knowledge about that, or if you've used that device, please let me know because it looks pretty great. But yeah, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around until now, if you would like to get in touch with me, I am meeshyfrazz on Instagram, Ravelry, and Blue Sky. You can email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me on my website, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.